It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Friday, we can tell you that UCLA has been liberated. Gary.
Oh, yeah. My.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Hey, before we get to that, I just was looking, going through a bunch of different stuff, and I saw the RNC going after Biden, saying Biden is mad President Trump and his mega allies in Congress lowered taxes for 91% of Americans in every income bracket. Biden has promised to repeal those tax cuts if he is reelected. I think there's a sunset clause that happens on that. And from what I know, I mean, this is a conundrum for you and I. Because, as I said, Biden is mad that President Trump and his allies, mega allies in Congress, lowered taxes for 91% of Americans.
Right.
Well, you and I were in the other 9%.
Yeah. So this would, if they let it expire.
Yes, we would get a tax cut, and 91% of Americans would get a tax increase.
Right.
But you and I, because of some business deductions that we were able to take that were taken away from us, ended up paying more in taxes. So where are we going to stand on this, Eric, because of our own self-interest?
Well, on the air, I'm going to say that this is wrong. And off the air, I'm going to tell you what I told you right before we came on the air. I can't wait. And, hey, could we get it ramped up? Is there any way that Biden can use his, magic wand that he's been using to do away with college debt and make this happen now? But on the air, this is wrong. And I completely disagree with it. And you're not a patriot if you agree with it.
Oh, I got a better one. The 91% that will complain are all xenophobes.
Ah, yeah, there. Exactly, yes.
Gary, what does xenophobes have to do with taxes?
Doesn't
matter. Doesn't have to make sense.
Don't change the topic. It's exactly.
Right, doesn't have to make sense.
You know what it means.
Hold it. Wait a minute.
No.
Hold it before.
What?
Xenophobe.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you say. I'm just going to keep repeating that over and over again.
Yeah, why not?
But it's taxes. What are you talking? Xenophobe. I become a liberal. Xenophobe.
Yeah. I mean, it's that would be bad for Biden to let that happen. That would be bad, and we're against bad things here on the air. On the air. Yeah. So,
interesting day yesterday, was it not? I mean, really, to end the week. You saw the Bills' first round draft choice at Portland State come running after that, trying to get through that police defensive line.
Okay. Now, this is what I love. They're using cut up Rubbermaid trash cans as shields. So they've got these. They're the Rubbermaid trash cans. They're I don't know what they are, like 30-gallon trash cans, and they're a plastic rubber kind of thing, and then they've cut them up to look like a shield. It looks like a shield. It's not a shield. And I don't know why they had them, but I guess they wanted to look tough. And so they come running around this corner, and the one in the lead comes charging at this cop and thinks he's going to plow the cop over. And the cop just lays him down like a sleeping baby. Oh, my gosh. It was the funniest clip of the day.
And then when somebody put it to Benny Hill music,
that
was even better.
Yeah, the whole yakety sax playing in the background. I love that. That's great. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, and you could tell these punks had never run in their life. Oh, my gosh. It's funny. When you're a gamer, you have an avatar to do all the running for you. Well, crap, now we actually have to run ourselves? No. Okay, I guess we'll run. Give me my little rubber shield.
You know,
Oh, my gosh.
I'm sorry. You know what I was thinking? I was thinking. Do you remember when? I remember, for example, I believe it was David Bellavia who was the Medal of Honor recipient, who is now doing the talk show I did, the time slot I did in Buffalo at the station I worked at in Buffalo. That was talking about when he was in Fallujah and everything that they went through, and remember how they put like the enemy would be high, that they would put them on speed or whatever.
They had some kind of some kind of speed, some kind of stimulant,
that
super stimulant that would just charge them
that's
up. Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that this
right.
overconfidence. It's like, well, you cannot be irrational with you cannot be of rational mind if you come around that corner full speed and you see the cops there, with 3 or 4 deep, and believe that you're actually going to barrel through them.
Yeah.
When you can, when he hits the one.
Well, it's just
it was Dick Butkus.
I mean, it was so horrible. It looks like me saying, "Hey, listen, I'm going to get out there with the NFL practice squad today, okay? You guys watch." And then everybody watching me after I say, "Watch this." They just take the camera going, "Oh, this is going to end badly. This is going to end badly." And you look at this, this whole thing, and these kids coming around this corner, they really thought, and I'm thinking to myself, who drew the short straw here? To be out in the front. Are you so delusional? Are you actually on something? Are you really on something? You must be delusional or high to think you're going to charge an officer of the law who's in full riot gear, by the way, and he's just standing there like he's just waiting for him. And he doesn't move.
No, he wasn't like, it wasn't like he was moving forward, Dave.
No.
To hit him like you might see in the NFL.
Doesn't charge out. He's just standing there.
Bam!
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, the bicycle helmet is cute. My gosh. I mean, the cop's position was, that officer was in the best position. He's got that right foot forward, so he's got the leverage there, and he's going for the top, which is what you do, because where the head and shoulders go, the rest of the bodies go, and you use the momentum of that person against themselves, their own momentum, and you reverse it from the top, and that's exactly what he did. It was a great move, and took that kid to the ground immediately. It's just the delusional thought that you could just charge a cop. I would have been tempted to run ahead of them as a cop, just slightly faster than them. Come on, keep up with me. Come on, and then just run them out. Just run them out, completely exhausted. Come on, pick up your rubber shield, you moron. Wow. Yeah. Your indoctrination is going to get you nothing in life.
I was reading Daniel Henniger had an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, the cookie cutter campus protest, and talking about Columbia. And we all knew what was going to happen, because they sit there and they start the protest, and then you've got the school president come out and say, well, we don't want to escalate. We don't want to escalate. We don't want to escalate. And so the police don't get involved, and so the pro-terrorists escalate it.
Yeah.
They escalate it, so the police have to come in,
right.
And then you create a complete nightmare,
right,
trying to de-escalate the situation,
right,
when what they wanted was to escalate the situation. That's what they wanted all the time, and they were just going to keep taking advantage of these idiots, these school idiots. And by the way, she should be fired immediately.
Yeah. Yep.
She should be fired. Whoever heads UCLA should be fired immediately. Yep. For this. I mean, when I woke up yesterday, by the time I woke up yesterday, they had cleared everything out.
At
UCLA, but you saw the mess that was there. But he's right. The cookie cutter campus protest, Columbia's Gaza encampment invaded Hamilton Hall this week. And he goes, and he talks about the fact that 1 a.m. Tuesday, a group called Columbia University Apartheid Divest posted on Instagram calling for an urgent mobilization at Hamilton Hall. Earlier, the group said, we will not move until Columbia meets our demands, or we are moved by force. This was effectively a mini Hamas strategy. Give the authorities no choice but to come after you. It's the most basic flip the script tactic. The perpetrators of mayhem transform themselves into camera-ready victims of state violence. Anarchy like this is an opportunity for the U.S. enemies. The one hopes the FBI and Department of Homeland Security have this Palestine justice activity on its radar. Why wait for another domestic act of terror to happen? The encampment defenders will say that is an overreaction, but that despite the violence at Columbia and UCLA, that their protests are only about conditions in Gaza, the fact remains that Gaza is inseparable from Gaza is inseparable from Hamas and Iran.
Yep.
The two entities in a network dedicated to attacking the U.S. Add that to the revived terrorism units of Islamic State. All of a sudden, we have pro-Palestinian encampments spread across the country with a porous, overwhelmed southern border. Not to worry? This is worth addressing the notion that most of the student protesters are peaceful kids moved only by the concern of Gazans. For some, possibly so. Still, we live in an age in which media drives everything, and it is difficult not to see how adeptly the media has been manipulated to shape public impressions of the encampment. Almost every time a pro-Gaza student gets access to a media microphone, one hears a bland commitment to nothing more than easing the suffering of Palestinian women and children. It sounds rote, almost scripted. What seems to be going on here is a conscious strategy to establish an equivalence of sincerity. A facade of empathy is always mandatory now between pro-Palestinian students and the Jewish students resisting anti-Semitism on the campus. So protesters know that their highly theatrical encampments will generate interviews if they can repeat earnest declarations of humanitarian concerns often enough. An equivalence of sincerity between them and Jewish students will come to dominate the media narrative. That equivalence, in turn, archives another goal, suppressing the historical context of these campus protests. It's almost impossible. The impossible mission of Israeli-Palestinian negotiations is defined by the names of history. Bill Clinton, Bush, Obama, the Israeli prime ministers, and goes through all of them. Palestinian interests for decades were represented by the ever-unreliable PLO chairman Yasser Arafat, and now the 88-year-old near-irrelevant Mahmoud Abbas. A list of negotiated and violated agreements is long, and we know that every single ceasefire agreement has been shut down by Hamas. The students are so naive and willful river-to-sea ignorance about the realities of the Middle East peace process is the benign explanation. More cynical is what has emerged the past week as the activists' primary interest, forcing university endowments to divest from Israeli companies. This has little to do with the aftermath of October 7th. The anti-Israel BDS movement boycott, divestment, and sanctions emerged around 2005. The tactic was to ban Israeli scholars from conferences at U.S. universities and elsewhere. When people say anti-Semitism has been building at universities, this is what they're talking about. BDS made Israelis shunned, second-class citizens of the academic community. Then there's Joe Biden, because his re-election team assumes an equivalence between younger Democratic voters and the Gaza encampment occupants. The American president himself has become a hostage to the hardest of the U.S. hard left. He won't cross them, and they know it. When Mr. Biden gets to Chicago in August for the Democratic convention, Uber left Mayor Brandon Johnson won't have the cops back the way New York's Eric Adams did this week. On current course, the Biden candidacy could die this summer in Chicago. As we said, the Biden administration still, and by the way, he made a statement, then somebody asked a question, he said no, and then he turned around and walked off stage. It was really, really bad.
Well, this is the problem. The pressure is on for him to say something, and then the pressure is on from within to keep him from being in front of the camera at all. Because he is a liability every time you put him out there. There's no way around that. He can't take questions. You can't have him talking to the media. You can't have them reading from a prompter.
The Democrats believe they have to have the pro-terrorist vote in order to win this November.
Yeah.
That's what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't get the pro-terrorist, pro-genocide of Jews vote, they don't believe they can win.
Right.
That's why this is happening.
Yep. This is insane.
I know. Really.
Insane.
By
But
the
the
way-
thing is that
The American public isn't buying it.
they're not, and he can't reverse it. Because what do? Well, you're already putting in a port in Gaza. You're allowing Iran to fund their proxies. Are you also going to, if you come in and disavow the radicals here domestically, are you going to reverse all of those policies that you have in place that's allowing Hamas and Hezbollah and all the proxies of Iran to do what they do?
No.
No. Man.
And the terrorist supporters know it.
Yep. Yeah, they know.
They know that Biden will speak one way but behave in another way
Yep.
that will give them an advantage.
Right.
Which is the fact that we won't stop and put the sanctions back on Iran.
Right.
To stop the funding, you have to look at this and say, how much of the funding came through foreign entities tied to Iran oil money?
Right.
That'd be a question I'd be looking at. And by the way, Congress is going to look into that.
Yeah, right. By the way, he's promising again, if he's reelected, he's going to keep that money flowing to Hamas and Hezbollah, and then he's going to raise your taxes.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Logging miles during the hot summer months can put a serious strain on you and your truck's health. Did you know pollutants and allergens in the air outside can enter your cab through the HVAC system without you even cracking a window? That's why it's important to check those cabin air filters. Inhaling dirty and polluted air can cause distress if you suffer from allergies or a respiratory illness. Not to mention the distraction dirty cabin air filters can cause by blocking proper airflow to your AC system when you need it most.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What I like is, the analogy. Well, I mean, what's happening here on the college campuses is exactly what happened in the late 60s and early 70s in the United States, and actually America, after all of these riots and protests and everything else, sort of embraced the message that was coming from it, that our government was lying to us about Vietnam and that it was time to get out. And that helped push the de-escalation of that war and the United States withdrawal. There's the only problem here is what's going on in college campuses is they are Jew haters and pro-genocide and pro-terrorist. So the message is important. You and I have talked about this before. You can have a ton of money. Biden is already spending more money on campaigning than Trump. Is it effective? No, because nobody buys the message. You can have as much money as you want if you promote a message that people don't accept or people view as BS. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
In fact, it drives it in the opposite direction.
Yep.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Rhode Island Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Man, I love this story.
Yeah.
Hims and Hers founder, Andrew, is it Dudum or whatever, said his company and others will hire anti-Israel protesters from college campuses. He hails their moral courage. The founder of and CEO of the online pharmacy Hims took to social media. Now they make if on Facebook their ads are all over the place.
Yeah, they have a number of different products
for erectile dysfunction though, and what I know because they're all over
and regrowing hair and all that. Yeah,
but,
they have hair.
But the one I see on Facebook constantly, and I have not searched for any ED medication. But for some reason on my thread, I probably see those ads more than anything. And the thing that caught my eye on it is the fact that every single person who needs whatever form of Viagra that he's selling, every single person is somebody that looks like they're in their 20s who needs it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I mean, all right, we're talking about online pharmacy, and I keep thinking of the 2.5 Men when Charlie got the weed.
Yeah,
from Russell, the pharmacist, and so he sits there, and so he sits and goes, well, let me get the doctor on the line, and it's some guy over in India, and he says, okay, cough. Charlie goes, oh, that's bad, and then he sits there and he goes, okay, faxing the prescription from India, and he goes, then the guy like not on the Zoom on the on the computer says, hold on 1 second, because his phone's ringing. He goes, hello, DirecTV.
Doing customer service, too.
Yeah, he's doing customer service DirecTV. When I saw this, I'm like, yeah, that's what you do. In fact, what I suggest, the founder and CEO of Hims and Hers, I believe every employee, the majority of employees of your company, I agree with you. Go ahead. Hire those protesters because let's see what type of productivity and efficiency they give you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Hire them.
Mm-hmm.
Make 100% of your company pro-terrorist and pro-genocide and pro every other leftist radical position that is held out there, and see if your company succeeds.
Yeah.
Wow. There are plenty of companies and CEOs eager to hire you, regardless of your university discipline.
All right.
It said, you have, who is it here? I'm trying to find somebody responded. Joe Lonsdale, who co-founded software giant Palantir Technologies in 2003, responded saying, real moral courage doesn't involve joining a mindless mob, chanting anti-U.S. and other woke pablum, following instructions not to debate or discuss your positions at all, yet being indignantly righteous while large numbers in the mob chant for violence and block Jewish students. But that's what he wants. And I suggest that every single pro-terrorist person apply for the company and put it down proudly. And then if you don't get hired, let America know that he's not hiring you.
Yeah.
But I think that the goal of Hims and Hers for all these unattractive people should be hired from him and hers to sell ED medication.
Yeah. Well, apparently, I mean, according to their website, they can solve every problem you have. Wow.
Hey,
They don't have investment advice, but I guess they might take that up. I don't know.
Well, you had Kevin O'Leary out there yesterday warning that student protesters are trashing job chances. And it's true. You know, that you think about it now, everything is different because you have, if you're putting that on social media and you get arrested for it, nobody's going to want to deal with you on that.
Well, the problem is with the students who were attending these schools to, learn something, actually get an education and go on and be productive. And they show up as recent graduates. Man, if you're part of the class of 24, wow, from many of these schools that have been in the news, I mean, you're probably going to have to work a little harder with that employer and getting on. That's just the way it's going to be. For a while, those schools are going to have, and I don't know how long that's going to go on. It could be a long while that you have these schools that basically are trashing because they allowed this to go on, their own reputation, therefore making those chances of getting a job much slimmer for the kids that actually were there to learn. If you're pro-terrorist, I have no sympathy for you. Sorry. There's no gray area there, and I'm not going to try and find any.
No.
Don't ask me to.
But I think that everyone who is pro-terrorist, pro-genocide should apply to hims and hers. I agree with the CEO. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Hire all of them and see how successful your company becomes in hiring those people. Because I'm assuming that productivity and efficiency to sell more of your product is exactly what is on their mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, when you think about it, I'm sure if you look at the stats, you would find that people that have erectile dysfunction are basically older. And the older you get, I'm not saying it doesn't happen when you're younger, but the majority of it is as you get older.
Yeah.
And so he's basically telling a significant portion of the people that buy his product that disagree with him and believe what's going on is pro-terrorism and pro-genocide, that this is the official position that I am taking. Please buy my product.
Yeah, right. Now, that is the conventional thinking, that it's an older demographic. But after watching some of these pro-terrorists on these videos try and charge a cop full speed, and full speed for them, it's all relative, with their little rubber shield and whatnot, I'm thinking, I don't know. That could be your target demo too, right there.
Well, you may have a point here, because what you had was, especially from the people at Portland State, was probably a delusional mindset of aggression, but a total lack of testosterone to accomplish the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, I may be wrong here then.
Right. It's your.
You have me wrong. I may be wrong on this. The demographic may be younger.
It could be a growth. By the way, now I'm actually interested to know if that's the case. I mean, when your life is that, well, look, my avatar has all the muscles. I don't need any. I don't need to stand up.
Well, we know. I mean, who was saying it last week? Because it is true. Young people aren't having sex.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it. Why, if you're a young lady and and you walk in and it's like, wow, you drink a lot of Red Bull, and I'm sorry, are you wearing adult diapers? How long have you been playing this game? What's going on in this room right now? Then that I could see.
My avatar is my social life.
Exactly.
But look, when they said it, they said more young people are not having sex. Young people are still having sex, but not as many, as a greater percentage, and not as frequently as past generations. We know that.
Right. Well, I mean, it really, I think the mindset has changed for a number of reasons, but it really is that virtual setting, thinking, okay, you can just live your life this way. And that's what I think gives them this idea, this false idea that they can actually charge towards a cop. I think that's really indicative. That one, what was it, 10, 15-second clip is indicative of the mindset. You are delusional.
Is that why it went? Because that shows it showed the delusion of the entire movement,
and how weak they actually are. And I don't mean physically weak. I mean the fact that they're not putting any thought into this. They have no idea. They're clueless. They're weak on every level in their position. Yeah. They're clueless about who the enemy is, and that makes them dangerous in that when you side with the enemy, you welcome the enemy in, and this is an enemy we're going to be fighting as long as we're a free society. And they don't get that. And if you don't want to fight, fine. You can stand down. You can let your avatar do the fighting for you, and you can, have all you. However you think, you're free to think however you want to think, and hold whatever opinion you want to hold. But you don't get to take up space on a campus that and property you don't own. And you know what? I would advise you not to charge a cop with a Rubbermaid trash can shield.
Shows you how, again, that's why I looked at it yesterday, because that thing went viral. And you looked at it and you said, okay, that is a microcosm of everything that has gone on, the delusion of these people. But I will say this. I do believe that since the head of his and hers that has all the ED products and hair products and everything else, I think everybody should go and apply there. And I would hope that anybody who doesn't get hired lets the media know that he isn't hiring you, and 100% of his workforce should be people who think that way, since I've gone to his Facebook site, and that's the only thing that he talks about is his pro-terrorist, pro-genocide opinions. I think everybody who is hired by that company, and I also think that anybody who is part of LGBTQ, who is pro-Hamas and pro-genocide of Jews, should accept the invitation from Iran to go over there with one of their scholarships and promote who you are when you get over there with the scholarship.
Right.
See, we're not backing up. We're not saying don't. We're saying do it. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Yeah.
Why? Because you live in the delusional world and you don't even know what the hell the real world is.
Not a clue.
Well, it's time you found out about the real world. I just wonder how many scholarships Iran is going to give.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I may come up with the, let's go into business together. We'll come up with the pro-American Patriot Viagra.
There you go. Stand up for America.
Man, don't get me good. No.
I know.
I can't go there.
I know.
I can't go there.
Oh,
There's a bunch of places I could go.
No, my brain has about 4 million places I can't go right now.
Yes, there's a ton of places we can't go.
Yeah.
But everybody, the best part is everybody's laughing because they know exactly where we can't go with this.
Yes, exactly.
That's the best part.
It's hard.
You say he's getting and this is, in case you just tuned in right now, the CEO of Hims and Hers, which is sells online pharmacy, erectile dysfunction stuff, hair growing, whatever.
Antidepressants, according to their website too. They
has come out publicly and said, I'm going to hire pro-genocide, pro-terrorist people. That's what we want at our company. And we said, go ahead. We think 100% should be there because we believe those students that you saw over the last couple of days, their major goal is to increase sales for any major American company.
Yeah.
So go ahead to it. But you said he's getting blasted.
Oh, my gosh. I'm on his X page and the comments. One comment, you are about to be Bud Lighted. Oh, my gosh. And, you know, this is the thing, too. Publicly traded company, their stock price hasn't budged much, but I wonder if that will change in the coming days.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he is Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Just want to make a quick comment on it because I haven't actually read the legislation, but the anti-Semitism bill that passed the other day, a lot of social media, more social media than even regular media coverage on that one.
Right.
And immediately, you know, you had people on the right come out and say that this bill is a hate speech bill, and that it would make parts of the Bible illegal to say in public, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then there's conservatives that came out and said, no, that's not true. Let's not jump on this. That's not what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Look, we don't need any more hate speech legislation in this country. We need to get rid of the hate speech legislation.
Yeah.
Hate speech we need to get rid of, but we also need to get rid of hate speech legislation.
Well, because you're not going to legislate away the what's in the heart.
Right. I've always, and you've always been against hate speech legislation when the government comes in and tries to get rid of hate speech. You know, that's what led to, remember, was it Chris Cuomo that came out a few years back and said, hate speech is against the Constitution. It's against the law. And it's like, do you even have a clue?
Yeah.
You know, no, it's not. And so we've always been, there's enough laws in the book to punish everybody. And if Republicans jump on something, and I'll look through it and parse it out, still got to go to the Senate. I don't think it's going to pass. But, you know, the anti-Semitism bill. But no, you don't need it. What this bill actually would do, I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. But we don't need hate speech legislation.
Right.
There's enough laws in the book to punish these people. And the fact is, whether it's California or New York, the question is whether any of them will be punished, which then again drives the narrative that things are insane in California. Things are insane in New York if these people are not prosecuted. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I don't want them prosecuted to any more extent than anybody else that has committed that crime.
Right. Yep.
Whatever crime that they're charged with.
Right.
But besides that, this was Democrats are worried. This is really worrying Democrats. In fact, let's go to Morning Joe. All right, listen to this now.
All right,
because you can tell he doesn't know how to say it. Because when he starts going after Republicans, for example, he can be like, I'll use me as an example. He can be like me. When I'm passionate about something, it's boom, 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 right? Same with you.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're not sure of anything, it's like, well, I sort of think, and listen to how slow he talks here as he tries to get out this message that the protests are killing the reputation of Democrats. Here we go.
I've got to say, you'd ask what parents were saying about this. I mean, for parents whose children are, and they're children, by the way, there's some adults. but I say this because we've got kids, obviously, of college age. I just, obviously, there are many that are distressed. I'm sure many are concerned about their safety. I certainly hope the students got out and they're doing it peacefully right now. But Richard, this is, I tried to explain this a couple days ago. Maybe I wasn't eloquent enough. But I can tell you my family. I'm not saying the Vietnam War was a just war. It was not a just war. But I can tell you the riots on college campuses, the riots at the Chicago Convention in '68, all of those things moved my family from being Democrats their entire life to being Republicans. I remember I was young, and I remember my parents asking, what in the world is going on in this country? And of course, they were raised in the Great Depression in rural Georgia. Kind of hard for them to hear rich kids on campus of Harvard or taking over campuses of Columbia. But if you're offended by this, please, I'm trying to help you. I don't want Donald Trump to get elected, all right?
There you go.
Trying to help you. If you're too stupid to figure that out, you change to another channel. Because we're sorting through this as a country, and this is not helping. This is not helping the people of Gaza, and this is not helping those of us who want to fight fascism in America. But Richard, you remember '68? It was a tidal wave. There's a reason that Reagan won with a lot of young voters in 1980. There's a reason the Reagan Revolution took place. The seeds were planted in 1968. And again, when I say that, I'm not saying that the Vietnam War wasn't an unjust war. It was. I'm saying there are ways, as the Rev has proven. So he proved in Vieques, as Martin Luther King has proven, as others have proven. There are ways to do this that helps the cause without hurting, without aiding the worst elements in American politics.
Now, he's correct in one way, but he's clueless on history. He's correct in one way that this is hurting Democrats because it's hurting Democrats because this is pro-terrorist, pro-genocide of Jews. The Vietnam War, I'd like to, when he says, it's an unjust war, when you were going after communism, that wasn't unjust. What was unjust was lying to the American public. What was unjust was not attempting to win a war and not telling the American public, what you were actually doing.
Right.
Lying to the that's what made it unjust, and that's what turned even my father against the Vietnam War.
Right.
Not the fact that he ever thought that fighting communism was wrong. It was, well, we're getting these deaths every single day, and are we attempting to actually win this war?
Right.
And why are we being lied to? And so that's what that was about. Reagan's victory had nothing to do with Vietnam. The fact that Scarborough's trying to make that analogy that the ties to Reagan's victory was Vietnam is just completely an intellectually bankrupt opinion and a complete revision of American history.
Yep.
And so there he's trying to make the case that just the protest itself. Now, the part that made America, concerned about it was, number one, at the point where these protests started, remember, the left took it out on the soldiers. The soldiers were spit upon coming back from Vietnam. It wasn't going after the government. It was expanding it out. And then there was a lot more than just Vietnam. There was everything that went along, with it that Americans, might have disagreed with, the whole concept of the drug culture and everything else that came with it.
Yeah, right.
And so it was more than just the Vietnam War that initially turned people off to the protests that were going on. But the fact is, this is completely different. And the left's trying to say, well, if there's a protest, there's automatically a reaction. There's just a reaction that the protest is bad no matter what it is. And that's not true. What you're protesting and what you're advocating is huge to the American public. The American public is not looking at the protest and just saying, well, protest, I vote Republican. Protest, I vote Trump. It's that you're a bunch of damn pro-terrorist, pro-genocide of Jews morons. That's what it is.
Well, and Scarborough here makes it sound like there's a growing sentiment in support of these protesters and that position, and the sentiment is going the opposite direction. In fact, you can see it. You know where the American people are. And it also comes down to it is driven by anti-Semitism and hatred. When you see what's going on here, this is a very different scenario than any of the protests on the Vietnam War. You can't just grab another major protest and say, oh, look, this is just like, no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Each protest is determined by the actual issue that's being protested at that point, or the number of issues that are being protested. It's not just, it's a protest, therefore everybody reacts in a particular way, and therefore 68 is like we're seeing today just because it's a protest happening.
Right.
That's not the case.
No.
And then in Chicago, what in 68, with the massive riots, that was, look, you can protest things, but you need to keep it under control. You don't destroy other people's property.
Right.
You know, that's one thing that you've seen here is the fact, no respect for property rights. None. You know, you talk about a pathology of dependency.
Oh, man,
when you give people stuff and you pay for people's stuff and they become spoiled, they don't respect, they don't have a value of the dollar that they get for free. And if that's the case, they have no value for anybody else's dollar, which means they have no respect for anybody else's property. And you saw that here. They have no respect for anybody else's rights. They have no respect for anybody else's property. You know, we talk about property rights and we talk about, look, if you acquire wealth, you should be able to, keep it and the government shouldn't take it from you. You know, because acquiring wealth in a capitalist system is a way that you can have freedom. Nobody controls your life, or they have less control of your life when you can decide what you wish to do with your life because you've saved your money and you've put it away. That's a basic tenet of capitalism out there. But the fact is, if I'm going to want people to respect my property, I've got to respect their property. And it's just not their cash. It's their business. It's public property. Mm-hmm. I don't have a right to go and just have a protest without getting a permit anywhere that I want.
Right.
That's just the reality of it. And if I can't get a permit to promote my free speech when other people do, I go to court and I get that permit. There's a system to work through. They say to hell with the system. Anarchy is the system that we want. Anarchy goes along with what? Anarchy, lack of respect for property rights, pro-genocide, pro-terrorist. It all works together. You have no respect. When you're an anarchist, you have no respect for anything except your own delusional self-interest.
You know, it's listening to Joe Scarborough here and him mentioning Martin Luther King. Taking the nobility of the cause of Martin Luther King Jr., think about this, and trying to assign it and actually giving it the same moral ground. Anti-Semitism is on the same moral plane as all of the things that Martin Luther King fought for and spoke about. No, it's quite the opposite, actually. Quite the opposite, Scarborough. I don't know where your brains went. I have no idea, but that was a thoughtless, rambling, and horrible attempt. Just clueless. just clueless, desperate to appease these protesters. Why? Why?
You notice he doesn't give an explanation.
He doesn't.
He doesn't get into the minutia of it. He just like an overview of. But the one thing he's correct on: this is hurting Democrats.
Right.
But it's hurting Democrats. Why? Because it's pro-terrorist, pro-genocide of Jews.
Right.
Anti-Semitic.
Right.
That's why.
Right.
He can't say that.
Nope.
Because it was a justifiable protest. And people were following the rules and regulations. And they were just going into the bank legally to get a deposit instead of robbing the bank. We've used that scenario because every time they talk, we're for free speech, but this is going, and Eric and I, we got on this narrative that every time somebody robs a bank now, Biden should come out and say, just because they robbed the bank doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to go to the drive-thru and legally take out a deposit from your account. And every time somebody robs a bank, you have to say that.
Right. Exactly.
Like, why? One doesn't relate to the other.
No, I mean, that would be the Karine Jean-Pierre, right? That book, every answer on that bank robbery would start, and she'd go to that page in the book. It would start with what you just said. And we're not wrong about that.
No, we're not.
That's the insanity. And over again, them trying to justify things that are not justifiable. There's no gray area here, so stop it.
Right. Well, what they're trying to say is, well, they're just going a little bit too far in freedom of speech. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
No, they're interfering with my rights. It's a completely different ballgame than free speech.
Right.
Because their rights end where mine begin. And you're saying I can't go to class because you believe you can break the law with impunity, and maybe in these states you can, but it will continue the degrading of those states.
Right.
It'll continue with the narrative of the law doesn't matter.
Right.
What the criminal wants to do is what the prosecutor wants and the judges want.
And the future students and the consideration to attend those campuses, that's going to change. I don't know to what extent, but there's no way it doesn't have an effect.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets. Percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I was reading an article that said, I got to find it here, that was talking about the fact that Biden has abandoned Bidenomics. He may not be saying it, but he was out yesterday again promoting how great the economy is. It's like, wow. Yeah. U.S. consumer confidence drops to its lowest level in nearly 2 years. We did touch on it earlier this week, but the protests really dominated a lot of the time that we had, so we'll get to that. Plus, just a ton of analysis. Kevin O'Leary out there yesterday at Fox News talking about, since we talked about the president of Hims and Hers, the online pharmacy for ED products and things like that, who said, no, everybody should hire these pro-terrorists.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay.
Wow.
And he's Kevin O'Leary talking about the AI background checks that are automatic now. Because these people, you have a record. It's going to be a whole different ballgame now.
Yep.
You can't hide anything anymore.
Autonomous individuals in unison. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
He's Eric Harley. I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when you choose.
Yeah.
If you can't listen live overnight.
Yeah.
All right. This is Kevin O'Leary on Fox News yesterday. This is interesting about the protesters and what the future holds for them in the business world.
What makes this different from all the other previous protests we keep hearing about is that you can see everything clearly.
Yeah.
How is this going to shape up for the futures of these bigots?
So student protests have been with us hundreds of years, and there's always the passion when you're young. What's different about this time is for the first time ever, because you think about the protests in the 60s and 70s, they were shot on 16-millimeter film, very, very grainy, hard to get resolution, particularly at night. Not the case now. Everything being shot now is 1080p or 4K, even the surveillance cameras. Every single image, even at night now, goes into an AI generator and will tell you who that individual is. So I hire people. I have a lot of companies. I hire thousands of people. Within weeks, I'm going to be able, when we're doing your background check, I'm going to find this because it's going to be in there on the dark web. Those are the services we buy. It's only $5,000 to do a deep, dark check. Here's your resume with a picture of you burning a flag. See that one? That goes in this pile over here because I can get the same person's talent in this pile that's not burning anything.
Right.
I don't care what university or what you're burning or whose side you're on. You'll never know why you didn't get a mortgage. You'll never know why you didn't get into college. You'll never, in advanced education, you'll never know why you didn't get the job. Because we see you now. And all you need is to have your eyes exposed with a new 4K image, and for the rest of your life, you're in this pile. So there's plenty of consequences for all those people. Even an image that far away, AI can generate who they are by the way the body moves. I can't believe the stuff I find in background checks now. These people are screwed.
That's it. I mean, in today's world, you and I talked about it with a number of things that are changing in the wake of such massive inflation, insurance rates that are going up. But it's not just inflation that's impacting insurance rates. It's so many things that impact your insurance score, your driving score, your credit score, all of these things, and then how much you're going to pay. Homeowners insurance, that gets back to the value of your property, but also, again, your credit score and how you behave. And we talk about how things are being super assessed, right, down to the minutia of who the individual is, and AI is doing a lot of that, as O'Leary points out in this audio that we just played for you. Now it gets down to the individual because it is critical that these companies, they have the heads of these companies have a fiduciary responsibility, and that starts and ends with who is going to be a part of the culture of your business. And it becomes extremely dangerous when you bring people in that are there for a different reason. If they are there to undermine you, if they're there for nefarious reasons, if they're there to create viral moments for themselves, whatever the reason might be. You and I have laughed over the years of people that, whether it's TikTok or on social media, and it's like they're posting stuff about their job. Oh, man, I don't like my job. I don't like my job. But you have to know your boss can see that. You have to know that's going to get around, and it won't be long. And, all that complaining is not going to get you anywhere, and you may not like it. You may say, well, look, I want my privacy. Yeah, well, you then stop being on TikTok, stop being on X and Facebook and everything else. And then beyond that, in the digital world, in today's digital world, it is critical that, and you and I always think about what we had to do, and showing up to a job interview, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was nerve-wracking where you would just, okay, I really got to get in there and show them. I got to demonstrate who I am. Well, today, they know who you are before you get there. And that is a critical part of it. We mentioned with the CEO of Hims and Hers saying, hey, we welcome the protesters, basically. By the way, I'd like to know what all the Jewish employees of that company think about that. I'd really like to know that.
Oh, that's a great, yeah.
And the comments, and one of the comments on his X page in response to his post was, you're about to be Bud Lighted. Companies want to know, if you think about the fall of Bud Light, think about the number one domestic beer taking a crash because of someone not being thoughtful. You may say, well, what she said wasn't, it's not as radical as these protesters. It doesn't have to be. We're talking about knowing who the people are that you're going to bring in and sew into the fabric of the culture of your company. And I'm telling you, and I've hired people, you've hired people, and I believe I have a pretty good notion of who somebody is by talking to them for a short time in terms of how they're going to perform on a job. But in today's world, you don't need any of that, and you've got to know so much more about that individual, because they come in and they decide they're going to come in and, what that marketing person for Bud Light said, the whole frat boys comment, it was a big deal because it was thoughtless. You've got to have critical thinkers. You've got to have people who understand the mission statement of your company, but you've got to have people who understand the relationship of an employer and an employee. And that's the real critical difference between people who believe they have a right to work for you and others who are willing to fight and work hard to prove themselves to you.
There's a huge difference between the real world and what goes on college campuses. And one of the things, my first thought is, with AI, because of so many government regulations have been coming down on businesses will go to AI because that's the one thing that can give them massive productivity and efficiency gains. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, if AI does that, they're going to be searching for employees that can do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And one thing we talk about, you mentioned something that just popped something into my mind when you said they need to know the employee-employer relationship. You and I, when we came on this show, and even in our careers, and I think it mirrors in this way. You and I have always built up, and we have it now with our management. There's a great deal of trust that they put in us. Mm-hmm. And that has been related over the years to us, mm-hmm. which is, we know you guys are basically self-contained. You understand what you're doing. You understand what the mission statement is. We know it. You've proven yourself. And that reputation, and I'm not trying to brag, it's just the reality of what we've gone through. Mm-hmm. You sort of have to, because when a corporation, because people think, and they're wrong if they think it, that the corporation hires you and then gives you talking points and says, right, we want you to push this narrative. That is so far from the truth. You have companies that come in and say, for example, they didn't say it to us. It's just implied that you can say what we want you to say, whatever you want on the radio. Please don't let any of our radio stations lose their license. Mm-hmm. And don't do anything that would destroy the ability of the business model to get advertising. Mm-hmm. That's a great deal of trust. Mm-hmm. And so you have to over and over again, maybe in very subtle ways, always keep that going. And you and I know that just looking at ourselves, that working together now 19 years this July, that there is a succession of bosses that even began before you and I were working together that knew of our reputations, and that reputation went from management to management, because what happens in radio is management goes somewhere else, and the talent, well, did I call myself the talent? The talent, even if they're untalented, but the talent actually stays. Mm-hmm. The talent especially in radio, if you're successful, continues, and that can go on year after year and decade after decade, which is very rare in the media. So in order to do that, you need to build a reputation. You can't have, and the reputation is, we trust you. You can't trust these people.
No, because your reputation precedes you now with AI and their ability to find out who you are. And, I always, I operate every day in my life. I with the respect for other individuals, and this is how I go about my personal life, and I think most people do that. And companies want to know that too. And like O'Leary said, look, there's a pile over here of people with talent and that have, nothing in their background that's going to give me any reason for concern. But so many people don't think that way. Look, if you think that's your role in life to do those things, great. But understand, in a free society, we also have a right to reject it.
And I don't want to just use this business, but every business I've been in, whether it was banking during college or when I machinist, whatever, I always had a great relationship with my bosses, whether I was union or not union. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter. And in management, for the vast, I'd say 99% of the people that work for me, great relationship, because I needed them and I didn't want to micromanage them. And so I'm not saying there aren't bad bosses and bad situations. It always happens. I've been in a few of those. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the relationships that I have had, whether I've been in management or the employee, everything has been built on trust.
Right.
And I think a lot of people right now understand that. You've had your bad jobs, but then you've had the jobs where it's like, oh, no, the boss, look, I need you to perform. I don't need to be on your case every day. If I am, I don't need you.
Right. Well, you and I, you and I have a share an agent, and one of the things our agent has said to us over the years is, this is in terms of the company, this is their real estate, and that's a big thing. This is the difference. Understanding whose house you're in and believing that it's yours is false. Believing that you have a right to it is false. Right. You have to respect that relationship and understand opportunity. And when that opportunity has been presented to you, and then how you earn and keep that trust to be able to be in that space, in that real estate, and then create opportunities for yourself. It might mean great things and you move on from that real estate to another real estate or whatever, but you're building that trust because you're in charge of that real estate when you're there. Look, here are the keys. You guys are in charge of the house between midnight and 5. That's a big deal. Hundreds of stations. And again, it's not to brag. It's just that you have to understand that. And whether it's, okay, I manage a store for somebody. I manage a store at night, or I'm driving somebody's truck and they own that truck. It's their equipment, but I'm driving that truck 120,000 miles a year. All of these things. Their brand is on the side of my truck. I don't own that brand, but I'm going to represent that brand. I see it every single day, and people that will go out of their way to make sure they're the face of that company and represent that brand accordingly because they understand what a business relationship is.
You say real estate, I'll say property. I respect your property and that you've given me a job to protect your property.
Yep.
If you're a student, you don't give a damn about property or anybody else's rights.
Nope.
I'm not going to hire you.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One of the ironic things is everything that the left has done over the last few years with DEI and everything else, and the radical transgender movement. They're now, when you think about it, lawsuits are coming. Lawsuits are coming after Columbia.
Yeah.
Lawsuits are coming after students that have student leaders and they're trying to find the money trail for this now. Lawyers are for lawsuits for violating, the civil rights of Jewish students.
Right.
And for these administrations for violating the rights. They created something that now is going to come and bite them back in the butt.
Yep. This is not over.
Nope.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here as always.
Thank you.
All right, two quotes from Democrats that are right on.
Okay. All
Okay?
right.
And you're going, what?
Mm,
No,
okay.
wait a minute here. Just
Okay.
Listen
Okay.
out.
Okay.
I bet you're going to go, Gary, what are you talking about? And you're going to agree with me in a moment.
Okay. All right.
John Fetterman.
Yeah.
A quote from Fetterman.
Okay.
Quote, the protesters at Columbia demonstrated that there are two factions of the protesters. There's the pro-Hamas, and then there's the really pro-Hamas. End of quote.
No, that's great. I like that. Yeah, no.
And then
he's right.
Jonathan Turley,
Yeah.
again a Democrat,
Mm.
talking about the fact that Iran has offered anybody who gets expelled from college for the protest a scholarship.
Yeah.
And we have enthusiastically encouraged anybody who is part of LGBTQ and pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism, pro-genocide of Jews, that we believe you should accept these scholarships in Iran. It's an opportunity for you.
Yeah, right.
And as Turley said, this could truly be an education for many of these students. Iran is offering scholarships.
Oh.
Come from the education, stay for the amputation.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Wow.
God.
Wow. Yeah.
Can I do Independent Bob one more time?
Yeah.
From the party that was 2 weeks ago today?
Sure.
When I said, Bob, hey Bob, how you doing? Good to see you. We're gonna have some good golf tomorrow. It was rained out. We're gonna have some good golf tomorrow. And what's the LGBTQ? What's going on? They're the LGBTQ for Hamas. What the hell's going on? They'd be executed. They'd be killed immediately. What the hell's wrong with these people? There you go. That's Independent Bob.
Right. It's also a little Gilbert Gottfried. God rest his soul.
Was it really?
Yeah,
I didn't.
Oddly enough, yeah.
Wow. Maybe I have to work on that.
Maybe. Maybe.
Oh.
And
I had no idea it sounded at all like Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, a little bit.
But that was, and I was waving my hands in the studio, by the way, just like Bob was, because just like, the intensity in his face, like, this defies all type of logic. It shows you how delusional this entire movement is.
Yeah, it's. You and I don't believe that most people are stupid. Democrats believe you're stupid, and they've demonstrated that time and time again. And we're seeing the poll numbers now of how Americans are assessing this whole thing and where they stand and where they don't stand. And those poll numbers can give you confidence in where we are as a nation when you look at that. You know, I mean, it's easy to lose some of that confidence when you're watching the whole protest thing play out. You know? But understand that, and we know this, and I've seen it from family members. You saw it from Bob, but I've seen it from family members too, and friends that have called me and said, and this is basic, I mean, it's been happening since October 7th. What is going on with people? These people are openly bigoted, protesting with their bigotry.
It's so funny when you said that, because it happens to both of us. People assume because, well, you guys are national talk show hosts.
Yeah.
What's really going on here?
It's like we're the call center.
Like what am I? Could you please tell me, what am I missing? Why do these people believe this? Why are they so delusional? I go, well, that's the question we ask every day. I don't have the answer for you.
We've become the call center. I mean, for their family and friends over the years, and that's what they kind of reach out when there's an issue. And I had a great conversation. Always have great conversations with family and friends about issues, and have a nephew that called me not too long ago. But he was on his lunch break, and he took the entire hour, talking with me, and it was great. I loved every minute of it. I just loved him to death. And I want to answer the phone. Critical Thinking Incorporated, can I help you? Please hold. And
it's going to be a couple of hours because the lines are full.
The current wait time is 1 hour, 47 minutes. If you wish to leave your phone number, we can call you back. Press 1. The entire thing when we see things like this, and this is when but it's, by the way, that's an indicator. When I start getting those, when them reaching out to me, what's wrong with people? I'm always walking around the house going, what's wrong with people? But when they start reaching out to me more and more, it's like, all right, because this is where we are as a nation, and that's indicative of what the polls indicate. That it's indicative of who we are as a society and how we feel. And when things started to turn yesterday, late in our show, yesterday morning, from the UCLA campus, as more and more law enforcement were showing up. And by the way, hats off to Anthony Cabasa, who was just doing such a great job. And he put on X, he posted on X, and I responded to it. That moment of those officers, those additional officers coming out, and he said he was just, he was so fortunate to be in that place at that time. He said this was kind of, I think, the best shot of the night. And really, it was the critical point when you just had these busloads of more officers getting off. It showed you, because everybody was asking, for those in the media that were covering it and that were not on site, and looking at this video and wondering what's going on with enforcement. What is their tactic? What's their plan now? And that was the answer, basically. That's where it started to turn. That was showing us, okay, it's about to go down. And, when we looked at that and as we're covering this, it's easy to get into this and go, my gosh, look how many radicals are there. Look at the growing number of radicals. But the fact of the matter is the overwhelming majority of us as a nation are not radicals, at least to this extent. It's all relative. It depends on what you're talking about. But this is extreme radical behavior and thought. And it really is foreign to a lot of people and should be. This kind of anti-Semitism, this kind of, and then going beyond just having that in your heart, you've got to go out and demonstrate that and then take over somebody else's property in order to demonstrate that and make the news as a result of that. That's something that most people do not connect with at all. They just don't. They absolutely don't. And that's a good thing. That's where we are as a society. We reject that kind of bigotry and hatred. We don't support that, and we don't tolerate that as a society.
I'm not a clinical psychologist, so it's tough to view each and every individual as to how they become part of the delusion that they are in. If you were to ask me, though, just generally, what are the things that drive something like this? I would say, first off, we talk about the number of polls that have been done that shows that people on the left, and the more far left you go, the more depressed you are, the more angry you are. And I think one of the things we've talked about this is the difference between being part of the pathology of dependency, where you have a sense of entitlement that you're owed something, and those people that are grateful for what they have in life.
Yeah.
Which means they're grateful for their health. They're grateful for their freedom.
Right.
You look at how you and I think, and probably most of our listeners, we don't expect something to be handed to us. There is no sense of entitlement.
Right.
There is no sense that you owe me something, or there really is no sense. I know this for me, I have never been, ever. I have never had one bit of jealousy or envy, even when I was living in my cockroach, fire ants coming through the floorboard apartment, and I had nothing, but I was doing what I wanted to do in life. I was grateful that I had the minimal sustenance to survive and could do what I want in life. And that was early on in radio. And I mean, I had in very, very small markets, and I had nothing. And I was as happy. And I go back, in fact, every couple of years, I will go back, and specifically when I worked in Marshall, Texas, this was back in the mid-'80s, and I had nothing. I mean, that's where I lived in that apartment. Yeah. I remember having my car up and, I actually lathed, the discs of my, went to a machine shop.
For your brakes?
For my brakes.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford to get my brakes fixed.
Right.
I had my car up on blocks and did it all.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that I was so incredibly happy at that point in my life.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized it's because I was grateful just for the ability to do something that I wanted to do, no matter what the cost of it was, because I could have worked in something else and been more financially secure.
In fact, comparing it to radio, you could have worked anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
And been more financially secure.
Right, at that point. But I was grateful. There isn't a lot of, and I was grateful just for my health and my life.
Right.
And I remember that. I remember, at that point I would have been probably in my early 30s. And I was so grateful. And my father was always on my case. What are you doing? What are you doing? Be an engineer, for God's sakes. You've got the technical knowledge. You could be making 5 times what you're making now. I wish to do that. Now, it made the moment greater when I was driving home, when my father and I was working at our great affiliate, WLS in Chicago, finished my shift. In fact, I was doing my shift. My father was in town, came up, watched me do the radio show. We were driving back to my house. He looked at me and he goes, "You got to stay in this business." I mean, that was a great moment for me. And I always at that point was under the impression, because I knew my father disagreed with where I was going, that I was like, I don't need my father's approval.
Right.
When I got my father's approval, I realized I needed my father's approval.
Right.
Because it was such a great moment when I got it.
Sure.
And then, since that point, he's always said to me, aren't you glad, even today, aren't you glad that, I encouraged you and really almost forced you to stay in that business? we just both laughed.
Right.
And I was like, Dad, you weren't wrong.
Right.
Nobody was wrong. You weren't wrong. You were, and because I would have made, more money, but you make sacrifices to do anything in life. There are always different paths, and any path you take, you're going to sacrifice. You're going to give up something for another. But if you're grateful, and that's one thing I have seen with so many people that are conservative. They're extremely grateful for what they have. They don't expect anything to be handed to them, but they're so thrilled that they have the ability to choose the things that they wish to do and work hard, and they can work hard, and they build good relationships with people because they're positive and they're looking forward. They don't blame anybody for anything else. And that's what you get. You get you get people that I believe, number one, aren't grateful. Number one, they're entitled. They feel they're entitled. They are extremely jealous. I don't think in my entire life, no matter how poor I was, I ever looked at somebody who was a billionaire and said, that's the reason that I'm not making it today. Because my dad would have looked at me and said, you control your own life. The billionaires don't have anything to do whether you succeed or not in life. And so I think that attitude, you view, why are we different with our mindset? That's because you have the right character emotions.
Yeah.
That you go through life positive and grateful for the things that you have, and you're always looking forward to what I can accomplish tomorrow. And you and I think the same way. You and I could be sitting back at this stage in our career, at our age, and just go, well, let's just mail it in. It's this all media sucks and everything else. And
hey, how about that Biden? No, we don't like that guy or do we? No.
Or you can sit there and challenge life every day, as my dad still does at 98.
Well, that's it.
And my dad's quote still is, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
And I think it's keeping that positive attitude, being grateful, and not letting those negative emotions of jealousy and envy drive your life, because what they've done is they've lost control of their own life. They're not in charge of their own life anymore, and so they view, for some whatever reason in their mind, that they need to break the law. They need not to respect your property. But then again, when things come easy, you don't respect a dollar. And if you don't respect a dollar and you have the sense of entitlement, what you're given means nothing. You want more. And if you don't respect...
That's it.
If you don't respect other people's property, then you're going nowhere.
Well, we talked earlier about, being employed for someone, how you respect that this is their property, but also you respect the customer.
Yes.
And in our case, the audience. And I firmly believe that you've got to get in. You've got whoever your customer is. You got to work for that customer every day, and you start at zero every day, and prove yourself over and over again. You made a great widget today, but tomorrow you got to show up and make a great widget. In fact, probably even better, because competition is moving it, and those are the things you have to be considerate about. And when you have been given things over and over again, and you haven't earned them, then there's no way you can learn that respect. There's no way.
No, because you earn the respect for property.
Yep.
Where you gain the respect for property when you earn it. And so you respect your property, well, then you learn to respect other people's property.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Harley Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome, and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. We'll take a look at where the campaigns are going. I'm telling you, the imagery right now is really incredible because you see all the polls over the last, since Trump really, was it almost 2 weeks? The trial's been going on. All the polls have been moving his way.
Yeah.
And you see that, they've been trying to hide Biden.
Right.
And it's just been, every time he's out there, it's a disaster when he's out there. Karine Jean-Pierre's about at her worst right now. It's getting worse and worse every day.
Yeah.
And you were talking before, just the still pictures of there's Trump out there. And it's like, after a busy day in court, Trump out with pizza for firefighters in New York.
Actually, it was a video, and it's a fairly short clip, but he's holding a couple of the pizza boxes, and there's a stack over on a table, and behind him is the New York firefighters. And as he turns around, he waves at the camera, and he turns around to walk toward the firefighters, and he hands them, a couple more pizzas, and he shakes the guy's hands, and they're all applauding and smiling. And the aesthetics of it is 100% on. And you're not getting any of that from Biden. In that moment, Trump was a rock star politically.
You said that during our pre-show meeting. You said, I don't mean to bring this up because it may seem like, it's antiquated because it's from previous campaigns. You said, but Trump is still a rock star.
Trump is still the rock star, and Joe Biden is not. And that's the way that people receive him and also perceive him when he's out on the campaign trail. And Biden doesn't get that.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I made a mistake.
What?
We were talking about that the story of the CEO of hers, but
hers, yeah.
But I say hers,
yeah,
hers, his, whatever. These are not pronouns.
Right.
We're not. This is not a pronoun segment. This is on the president of that of the online pharmacy that sells ED medications and a whole bunch more. So, and I mentioned to you that I always see it on my I don't search for it, but I always see it on my my Facebook feed.
Right,
it seems to always be there, and I'm like, and all the people that have erectile dysfunction, all the men, are like in their 20s. Like, okay, that's interesting. What market are they going for there? But so I made the mistake yesterday after that story came out that the head of that company is saying he's communicating that if you're pro-terrorist, if you're pro-genocide of Jews, come work for our company. And he got blasted for that. Now he's saying anti-Israel and the genocide of, the Israel genocide against Gazans, which is not true. But so on Facebook, I clicked just to see, what the business is about. Bad move. Every advertising, I just was scrolling through. Every ad on Facebook for me is Cialis or Viagra.
Well, there you go.
Every single one. It's like, wow, damn algorithms.
Congratulations.
I did it to myself.
There's a lot of stiff competition in that field, by the way.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, there is.
Without question.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we're going to move on.
We probably should. One way or the other, we will be.
So I wanted to get back to the last 10 days as I was talking about that. Everything has moved since the court trial started. Everything has moved in Trump's direction.
Right.
His campaigning, it's like, well, he's not going to be able to campaign. Well, he's been campaigning, and just him speaking after the courts, things have been very effective. him bringing pizzas to the firefighters in New York, extremely effective. There was a ton of compliments about his Wisconsin speech the other day, where he was right on talking about issue after issue after issue after issue. We played some of it yesterday, and he was. And his tone was excellent. He's been campaigning very well while being in court at the same time, where the media is noticing, he's out there campaigning. In fact, they're saying it. Even the campaign's doing it, but other the media are saying the same thing. He's got more energy, and he's in court all day.
Yeah.
Do you see what he said? When they accused him of sleeping, he goes, "No, I close my eyes and just listen." Close my eyes.
Right.
I listen to everything that they're talking about, whatever.
Right.
But we've talked about the panic, especially, and you think about it, it's really when the court case began is when the campus protests and riots started. And Biden not speaking at all until yesterday, I believe, has hurt them. And the media is panicking. And we played earlier where Joe Scarborough, mentioned and tried to make the comparison, I think unsuccessfully, but he did make the right analysis. Is this is hurting Democrats, and he actually told MSNBC viewers that you're too stupid to see the campus protest or hurting Biden's reelection, and actually said, change to another channel if you can't see it.
Yeah.
And we played the audio before. But then also listen to more of this because, look, they are the number one liberal outlet in America.
Yeah.
They're the number one. Now, yesterday, listen to what he had to say about Trump. This is the panic that's coming in. They're trying to raise the stakes higher. Hitler wasn't enough for Trump anymore. Mussolini isn't enough. Lenin, Stalin, we got to go further. We got to find somebody more evil. And so here's what he had to say.
There's a stereotype of the Trump voter that the media does. People are stumbling drunk out of their, trailer park and, shooting raccoons or something like that. No, it's bankers. It's lawyers. It's people with advanced degrees. This is something Anne Applebaum brought out so masterfully in her book, The Twilight of Democracy, which is the elites make this possible. Think about all the billionaires that, I'll never vote for Trump. And they're like, I'll vote for Donald Trump. They know this. They read this. They read that Donald Trump says that there's going to be mass deportation. He's going to force prosecutors to arrest political enemies. He's going to execute generals that don't follow his commands. He's able to use SEAL Team 6 to execute political opponents. And he says, you can't arrest me for that. You can go down the list. He's going to be a dictator from day one. He's going to terminate the Constitution. On and on. They've heard all of this. They heard what he said to Time magazine a couple of days ago. It is a dark, autocratic vision of America. And these people, these educated people with advanced degrees, are the ones saying, yeah, I'll support Donald Trump again. Thinking, you know what, maybe my investments will go, or maybe he won't tax me 3%. Not understanding that this is not just a threat to democracy, but this is a threat to capitalism.
There you go. Now, as we know, Trump's lawyers made the case that, the whole immunity thing before the Supreme Court, that he could do anything. It's a false argument. He can't. But it's a legal argument. Trump is not going to go out, and we all know it. He's not going to execute generals.
No.
For not following his commands. He's not going to use SEAL Team 6 to execute political opponents. He's not going to cancel the Constitution on day one because he can't cancel the Constitution on day one.
No.
This is the delusion of the left.
Well,
the complete delusion of the left, as they have a president who has used executive orders for unconstitutional for unconstitutional things over and over again, as he's been slapped down by the Supreme Court over and over and over again. If you look at who is the anti-democracy party, all you have to do is look at the states who tried to get Trump off the ballot.
Yeah.
9-0. All you have to do is look at the separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I've got on economics, I don't like Trump's populism on it. I don't like the fact, I don't think he'll do it, but he's trying to sell that, we're going to put tariffs on all products. He's not going to do it because it's going to raise the cost of goods and services.
Right.
And inflation's already really bad. Now he's trying to sell that. There's the populism of tariffs and things that we disagree with Trump on, but that's all within the mainstream of what's been talked about. That isn't radical. It isn't radical in the political mindset that has existed in this country over the last 50 years. None of it is radical. And so to take the legal argument that they were trying, and I know why they were doing it, because Jack Smith took the other side. There is no immunity for anything. And Trump's lawyers are, no, he gets immunity for everything. Well, neither was right. It's somewhere in the middle, but that's where you're staking your legal point, hoping, the Trump administration hoping that it's in the middle.
Yeah, right.
Or not the Trump administration, the Trump defense hoping that it's in the middle somewhere. But that's the panic of the left. Now, the interesting thing is, I was reading Jonathan Turley's column yesterday from his website, which is academia's, hang on one second here. Let me just get to it. I think I have the wrong. Oh, I've got the wrong one. The one where he talks about the actual, let me find it here. The actual media that, there it is. It was on his website. Poll, majority of Americans distrust the media. You hear that, and most people go, stop it. Trump didn't do it the first time. Trump's not doing it again. And as they talk about Trump's going to take away from democracy, you have rogue prosecutors and rogue judges prosecuting the former president for things that aren't even a crime. They can't even identify what the crime is. I saw this yesterday when I was 5:30 before I went to sleep. Just happened to be going through, and every single newscast was on the Trump trial. I went to Fox News. It's on the Trump trial and what's being presented. And nowhere was the context that everything that they were saying Trump did, even if he did all those things, isn't a crime.
Right. Like we've been saying from the beginning, for the past few weeks, it's been about the procedural things, about the trial itself, and not about the charges and the lack of basis for the charges.
Here it is. A poll from American Press Institute and the Associated Press has found that the majority of Americans are extremely worried or very concerned about the bias in the media and the reporting of false or misleading information. Only 48% of Republicans and 34% of independents still receive their news from national news outlets and express the greatest trust of the media. The poll shows that 47% of Americans have serious concerns about news outlets would report information that has not been confirmed or verified, and 44% worry that accurate information will be presented in a way that favors one side or another. For years, the journalists have sought on that branch upon which they are sitting. Even National Public Radio, which receives federal funding, is unrepentant in the face of criticism over its overt political bias. Former New York Times writer and now Howard University journalism professor Nicole Hannah-Jones declared recently that all journalism is activism. Who's been saying that for years now? We have.
Thank you for listening.
Advocacy journalism is all the rage in journalism schools and on major news media. Now, all journalism is activism means you don't tell the truth. It doesn't mean that you take the truth and you give your spin on it. What they're saying is you don't tell the truth.
You can't.
You can't tell the truth. In a recent series of interviews with over 75 media leaders by Leonard Downey Jr., former Washington Post executive editor, and Andrew Hayward, former CBS News president, reaffirmed this shift. As Emilio Garcia Ruiz, editor-in-chief at the San Francisco Chronicle, stated, objectivity has got to go. But that objective seems to depend heavily on what ideology you're advocating. The result is that the mainstream media is increasingly speaking to itself and a dwindling number of viewers and readers. NPR is, again, a good example, and that's the point that we brought up. I may have gone and seen every single one when I did at 5:30 today, every single one bringing up the Trump trial.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's turned it off. I saw an article yesterday. It was from USA Today, which was, talking about the problem that Biden has. And it was, Trump's trial is salacious, but Biden's got a lot of problems. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it's not.
No.
There is no buzz on the Trump trial at all.
No, there isn't. There really
There's
isn't.
none.
You really have to look for it. And if there were a buzz, it would be coming to you. That story would be landing every single day, and there just isn't a buzz.
Yeah, Trump's trial drama is salacious. Not really. Everybody knows Trump. Everybody knows how he's going to respond, and everybody knows what the rogue judge and the rogue prosecutor are doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they make it sound, again, they've got to create something else surrounding it. So Trump's behavior during the process, but everything is focused right now. All the coverage is about the process itself, and not on the fact that these 34 counts, are baseless. And that's the reason it's not resonating. Because they've seen the drama surrounding Trump before. The American people have seen that. That's why there's no buzz here. If you had the liberal media groups with all their experts saying, oh, my gosh, here's where he broke the law, that would be the story. They would never stop covering it. They can't do that because there's nothing there.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More on the media. Jonathan Turley coming up with this question. If the media reports and no one is listening, does it make a sound?
Oh.
Talking about the mainstream media. Also, talking about the Trump campaign, going after Robert Kennedy Jr. big time.
Yeah.
Over the last week or so. I mean, just big time. And by the way, I think they're very effective ads.
Yeah, right.
He's not taking any chances. The polls show, every poll has shown over the last couple of weeks that, and there was a great point made, stop doing the head-to-head polling. It doesn't matter. You got to do everybody in it. That's the only one that really matters.
Right.
The head-to-head polling doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter at all.
That's not what's going to happen.
Right.
And so when you look at it, Kennedy Jr. is still hurting Biden.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. Made it to a Friday. Is the Kentucky Derby this weekend? First weekend in May, right?
I'm an honorary Kentucky colonel, and I should have that answer for you.
Yeah, I think it is. See, we've been too busy.
And the answer is yes.
All right, the horsies are going to race this weekend. Boy, there's been no hype on that at all, has there been? Nothing.
I don't even have my hat.
I've still never had a mint julep.
No?
No.
You know, I'm not one of these that, you know, if I were to have a drink, wants to go through that whole thing. You know, growing up in Texas, you know, and living here my whole life, when I became of age, which in Texas is 8. Got some tequila for my 8th birthday. When I became of age,
Don't worry, it was flavored.
yeah, exactly. Had a lot of syrup in it. But that's the point too. Is that's exactly where I'm going. When the whole margarita thing. I understand why other people do it. I've never had any interest. It's like, no, just give me a shot of tequila. I don't need to drink this whole. I don't need the bartender to spend 20 minutes in making something that is really boiled down to one thing, and that's the alcohol in it. Give me the alcohol in it and move on.
Well, the corn syrup and alcohol is what'll kill you.
Yeah. Right. That's what'll kill you. Yeah. That's what I think we found something. It's the corn syrup. That's why you get the good tequila. Yeah. So with the mint julep at it, I know, it's most people want to. I want the flavor. I want to be able to enjoy it. Not me. Let's get it over with. We're going to have a gunfight out in front of the saloon. I can't be sipping on something called a julep. That escalated quickly.
I think I've been to the horse races maybe twice. Long time ago.
Yeah, right.
I don't have any interest, and so I don't think I'd, as much as it's cool to watch, what's going on there, I don't think I'd want to spend a whole day there. I'd be like, okay.
One of my old bandmates, his family has been in the horse business for a long time, and he's there all the time. Several years ago, this goes back a ways, all of a sudden on his social media, he posted a picture of him in a suit, which got my attention, and also standing next to John Boehner.
I remember that.
And I was like,
yeah, you showed me the picture.
I was like, well, what is going on here? Oh, it's Derby week. Okay. All right. Okay. And no, it's a big deal.
Well, that was the time it rained, and Boehner said, "I don't like messy."
I don't like messy. That's the yeah. We're going to see some mutters today. I don't like messy. It's
mutter.
I went to Rio Dos Downs. My brother took me there one time, and then he was trying to teach me how to bet on horses. I'm like, okay, all right. I don't know. Hey, I want to bet on the one that's faster than every other horse. It's cool to watch it. Now, Rio Dos Downs on that day was just a normal day of racing. It wasn't the Kentucky Derby. I go to Kentucky every year. Just went at the end of March for a big truck show, Mid-America Trucking Show, huge thing. And there's already a countdown to the Derby. This many days to the Derby. It is a big deal in Louisville for good reason. I mean, they bring in, I don't know how many hats, but it is the event, And to me, I would, and this is why, like Derby week. Can you imagine if the Masters came down to, okay, we're just going to play one hole, right? I mean, if it were that short, I mean, the Kentucky Derby is really short. If you know everything that goes into any of those racing teams getting to that point, then, I mean, if you're a true follower, then you understand it's not just about the one race, but it's, when you're viewing it, it's like so intense for that short period of time. And then, boom, celebration, defeat, whatever, it's over.
It was, when you say what goes into it, I love horse movies like Seabiscuit I loved.
Mm-hmm.
Secretariat I liked.
Right.
I think Diane Lane was in that one.
Right.
That was a good movie to watch it go all the way through the process.
Yeah.
Of both Secretariat and then the whole Seabiscuit story.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's a great movie. But another movie not as popular, but really it was 50 to 1, and that was Mind That Bird, who came out of nowhere, just nowhere to qualify for the Kentucky Derby and won it. And that was an interesting movie because you're not talking about, the well-known, I can't even think of the guy's name, the guy with the white hair that we all know at the Kentucky Derby that's there, the trainer there every year. But these are just guys, basically, I think were they from California? I forgot where they were. Let me just look at it here. The box office for 50 to 1, $1.064 million.
Wow.
So, but it was still a cool movie about Mind That Bird. And so, I love horse racing movies, but, going to the horse races.
Another horse movie, and it wasn't so much about racing. Mr. Ed joins the mob. It wasn't, if you have a horse, especially a horse that gets all mouthy, that's never good to be in the mob.
Wilbur.
You don't want a horse to tell everything. You know what I mean? You know what you call a horse that can talk? A liar. That's what you call a horse that can talk. I love the idea, of that kind of discipline on any level in any sport of all right, what does it take? I read something years ago in Texas Monthly from a retired horse jockey, and he said it was intense, and the discipline that is required. And, and the problems within the industry. I don't know if they still exist today. But substance problems that, and the fact that they've got to keep weight. You don't see, quite frankly, you don't see 300-pound guys up there on those horses. I don't understand why we're not winning. I know.
Yeah, I could never be a jockey. No, I'm sorry. It's just
no, I mean, it's
that goes against everything. Never being able to satisfy your hunger because of your profession.
Yeah.
That's too tough for me.
Right.
Nah. Even as a type 2 diabetic, I get to eat more than a jockey.
Yeah, it's for me, if that were going to be the case, before every race, I'd say, all right, you're going to have to duct tape me onto this horse because I'm so weak, I'm going to fall off. I mean, it wouldn't be good at all.
Well, there was a scene in Seabiscuit where he's where he wasn't going to be jockeying for a while, so he's eating everything at the dinner table, and then when it's time to train to be a jockey again, he puts 3 or 4 peas on the plate.
Right.
It's just like, oh.
No, it was this Texas Monthly article was lengthy, and I was like, oh man, this is tragic. That just sounds horrible. And yeah, no, there's no way. There's no way. I gotta have a sandwich every once in a while. Sorry. Tell the horse to go on without me.
Hey, you won the big race at Kentucky Derby. Would you like a cocktail? No, too many calories, and I got another race next week.
Right. I'm not going to Disney World. I'm going to the candy store. We're going to get some donuts on the way. What are you talking about? Yeah, it is, but I love that in the intensity. And
it is. I mean, there's nothing like a great call at the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, man.
and when I love. I mean, I've gone back and looked at, for example, Secretariat's win.
Yeah,
it's just like, whoa, man, I mean, you see that horse, and then even you can find the Seabiscuit race against War Admiral. Just was just those two in the race. That was it.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to go back and watch that original black and white film. What was that, 39? When was Seabiscuit? I forgot what year it was.
I don't remember.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
But those races are great. And even the Secretariat call is just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a great call. So, again, when you have a great announcer, they can make – and I can't even tell you who the announcer was, for it. But when they started off, when that bell goes and they start off, and you're looking the first couple of seconds, all right, who's out in the lead? And then
who's making strides along the way? Is there anybody, in the back that's making strides and all of that? If everybody loves to watch an underdog win, to watch an underdog do well. And anything with that kind of intense competition, to me, is exciting to watch. It's I've never actually reached out to my buddy and asked him, all right, the entire process, because it's so micromanaged. I mean, I have no idea what it's like to know all the bloodlines of these horses, and and the discipline at that level, right? To manage the horse breeding and to make sure those horses are healthy every single day and everything else, man. That's intense.
Or when you have a horse that, because it occasionally happens, that's like in last places, or and the horse comes and starts accelerating.
Right.
It's almost as if probably nobody remembers it, but in human racing, Dave Waddle back, I think I forgot how many thousand meters it was, but he was in last place in the last lap and won it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the 72 Olympics, Dave Waddle with his baseball cap on. Yeah. Go back sometime and check that on YouTube because you can't believe it.
Right.
You see him in last place and you're like, okay, there's no chance for the American. He starts pulling up and then he wins the dang race.
Yeah.
And you see how fast he accelerated at that, which is really interesting because everybody else was too tired. And that, that's happened with horses. I don't remember the last one where a horse came from last place to first place, but if you're still way back there and then the horse, this horse has a kick and then they start kicking and you're like, nah. That's pretty exciting when that happens.
Well, because you're seeing something, you're seeing the relationship between the jockey and the horse, but you're also seeing something in that horse. You're seeing something in that animal in that moment. And it's really cool to watch. That is really great to watch when that happens. Because I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, is the horse getting jealous of all the other horses? Is the horse just really hungry? The horse just wants to get it over sooner. I mean, you're like, look, that horse is an athlete. That horse is in this competition. It's not pulling a cart. Yeah. It's out there. It's an athlete.
I think the Santa Anita, the one Seabiscuit you've seen the movie, the end of it, and Seabiscuit's, I don't know if that's true or not, where Seabiscuit was in last place and then came around and finished and was so far back. I don't know if that was accurate or not, whether Seabiscuit was that far back.
I don't recall.
Oh, the movie was great.
I love the movie.
That's right, in the movie. Yeah.
I love the movie. I don't recall whether it was accurate or not, though. So it'll be something to see this weekend. Yeah. Was Kentucky Derby.
I think it's 5:30 our time, I think is when it is.
Yeah. May 4th, Saturday. It'll be fun to watch. I don't know what the forecast is there for Saturday. I'd have to look at that, but yeah, it's always exciting for sure.
I'm trying to see when was it? Seabiscuit 1933 was born, so I'm trying to see what year that was. I thought it was 39.
Right.
37 became a consistent winner. Okay, 1937 was the race.
Yeah.
You saw in the movie, yeah.
Well, they're getting some rain right now there in Louisville, and it could be a rainy day. In fact, looks like, wow.
So I can say it? You're going to have to be a mutter to win?
Well, you may have to be a mutter. We might see some mutters. Man, yeah, we may see some mutters out there.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, safety, accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety Compliance and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, a couple of audio cuts. We'll hear from a New York Times, former New York Times reporter, an op-ed writer, a liberal, who talks about what's going on with all of these, the protests that we saw this week, and how it is exactly what you and I have talked about, Eric. Just to know that liberals, this is the second time today the liberals have verified exactly what we have stated. Number one on the media, that the media is are activists. All media are activists. That comes from, again, New York Times writer. But this is another New York Times writer that talks about the victim oppressor, or the oppressed versus the oppressor, and identity politics, which we have stated doesn't go into what we have stated, that the reason that it's so easy to get to the anti-Semitism of today is because the Democratic Party has mainstreamed identity politics, which is judging people by groups and not individuals. Also, there was a hearing on the weaponization of the federal government this week. You had Robert Flaherty, former assistant to the president, that was one of the witnesses, and that really got to be interesting. He was a former assistant to the president and director of digital strategy at the Biden White House. And you can't get any of these people that served in this administration or served to ever answer a question.
No, you can't.
If you ever seen any of this testimony, the most frustrating thing is they never answer a question.
About to trigger somebody right now. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here this morning. This is really interesting. You know, we've all known the riots and the unrest that took place this week on college campuses. Some of the most bizarre campus protests ever to take place, because you cannot look at anything that came out of this and said they were looking to do good. Right. Everything was the insanity of the terrible racism, anti-Semitism, pro-genocide of Jews. And, you know, you and I have always talked about where the Democratic Party has gone wrong. And if you've been a long-time listener to the show, you know this to be fact, that what we have said for the longest time is that the problem with the Democratic Party going into the future is the fact that when you practice the victim-oppressor relationship, you always have to get more victims, which means you get more oppressors.
Yeah.
And that's what the Democratic Party is about. Find victims, convince them they're victims, stoke the envy and jealousy.
Yep.
And you move on from that point. The problem is you have to keep expanding the number of victims and therefore the number of oppressors, where then the victims that you once looked at and said these people are victims then become oppressors. Now you've gotten to the point where the oppressors become the victims.
Yeah.
It's reversed the opposite way.
Right.
Or the oppressor doesn't exist anymore, that Hamas doesn't exist. They're just not part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply, let's substitute the word Palestinians for Hamas.
Right.
And so you're always going to have a problem there. And plus, when you have identity politics, which the Democratic Party has mainstreamed, it's mainstream in the Democratic Party, and it's racism, because you judge people by the group that they're in and not as an individual. When you do that and you convince people that you judge people by groups, then, and you'll hear it here from, as they say, New York Times columnist and Duke professor Frank Bruni, that when you do that, that October 7th happened, and as he states, they just ignored. They ignored the genocide that happened because they've been trained to basically look and just have one particular narrative. And it's all about and the interesting thing is, I saw this yesterday, then I couldn't find it. And Eric, about 20 minutes ago, said, hey, this Frank Bruni thing. I went, you found it? And we hadn't even discussed it.
Yeah, I was actually going over the story at the time.
Yeah.
Over on this side, yeah.
And he was, and I just said, good, because it's all about identity politics. Listen to this, and remember, this is somebody on the left, and this is exactly what's going on in the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And here we go.
You teach on a college campus.
I teach at Duke University.
You're a professor at Duke University. As a college professor, what's your assessment of how this issue has become so animating with this generation of college students?
You know, a lot of college students in this generation, there's a sort of paradigm they use or a lens they use to kind of evaluate the world. And it's one in which people who have less money, people who have less power, sometimes people who are of darker skin, must inherently be being wronged and are therefore most likely to be in the right.
So they're predisposed to take the side of what they deem the little guy based on those paradigms.
Okay, quickly, what is that? Identity politics. Mm-hmm. You're not judging it by the individual instance or the individual. You're judging it by the group that they're in. Mm-hmm. Here we go.
They are, and I think you saw that play out after October 7th. Listen, I mean, there's obviously a righteous case to be made for Palestinians deserving our attention, our empathy, our activism, etc. But if you looked at what happened right after October 7th, you saw a lot of young people not even take a moment to really acknowledge what had happened in Israel and how horrific that was. They just kind of immediately applied this paradigm and began advocating not just for Palestinians, but in a perverse way at times for Hamas.
That's Frank Bruni, and he's on the left.
Yep.
And he sees it. It's exactly what we have said. Now, where was that taught? They don't get into that. Who taught that? The Democratic Party.
This has been part of the Democrats and their indoctrination, not just in public schools, but on campuses and everywhere, because they needed the victim-oppressor mentality politically. They needed people to go out every day and find a new reason to be a victim. Hey, you're not just a victim because of this. You're also a victim because of this. Well, that creates a whole new group of oppressors. And that's exactly what they need. I mean, right now, for them, the biggest oppressor is Donald Trump. And they're trying to create whatever they can, this monster, we talked about that earlier. Well, he's going to go out and he's going to, go after his political opponents. It's funny because you look at the situation right now with the Democrats who are going after him and using their political power against him in the same way that they're saying he's going to do that. And they have to create that monster every single day. Well, when you create a whole new reason to be a victim, you create that whole new oppressor that means that people within your group today are not going to be a part of your subgroup tomorrow, and you create more and more and more division. And this is what you have. And Bruni is pointing out the fact that the mindset is to side with the victim, whoever they see whatever group the victim is, we're going to side with them. It doesn't matter. And in this case, even terrorists.
And that's why it's important. Now, they didn't get into the discussion of, well, how did they learn this? And what about the political party that you've supported your entire life? That's where it came from.
Yep.
What he's stating is a victim-oppressor relationship, and also stating the fact that they had predetermined without the facts who was right and who was wrong based on what? The group that they were in. That's identity politics. You don't judge the circumstance by the individual criteria that formed the behavior of people or the behavior of an individual or a group of individuals. You simply say, oh, white people, they're to blame. These people, not to blame.
Right.
Based on no evidence, strictly that you fit into this particular group. That is the bigotry right there. Frank Bruni recognized it. Long time Democrat, New York Times writer. Now, he hasn't apparently connected the dots that it's a Democratic Party teaching this, but where else did identity politics come from? It didn't come from Republicans.
Right.
It came from Democrats, and there you go. And it's important because if you've been a long-time listener to the show, you know we've said that for ages. So 2 times today we've had, whether it's the other New York Times writer saying, all media
they're activists.
Are activists now.
We've been saying that
all
for
journalists
years.
are activists. It's like, well, we've been saying that.
I was talking to Sean Spicer one time. When I said that to Sean Spicer, after he had served in the Trump administration, I was doing an interview with him on our flagship, WBAP, and he said, I've never thought of it that way. I said, the people in that room, when you're in the press room, White House press room, those people in the media, they're activists. They're not journalists. And
right.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. And I've heard him on his show say that. And it's refreshing now to see people on the left see it. They are activists. You've got to do that. But the activism, it's not just in the media. Was it the president of Colombia saying, look, the truth doesn't matter. It's not about the truth.
Yeah.
The truth gets in our way. The truth gets in your way of shaping a narrative every time if the narrative isn't the truth.
And that's the part here. What does it mean to be a political activist in the media?
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't be biased because we're biased.
Yeah, we're opinionated.
Right, we're opinionated.
Yeah,
we have our own biases or whatever.
Right.
But we don't argue. We're not afraid to say, this is the truth here. What's my analysis of the truth?
Right.
And we get that from a lot of people who say, you guys are fair. You bring up both sides. Well, we don't agree with both sides. We are fascinated by how the other side thinks, but I'm not going to distort what the other person thinks.
Right.
I don't need to. Their opinions are radical enough.
Well, that would immediately destroy my argument every time. I don't see the basis. I don't see the need to do that and why the left adheres to it. But the thing is, they never, when you counter their argument, when you destroy their argument, they just move on to the next one.
Yeah.
They don't even come back and say, except now we're seeing people like Bruni and others come out from the left, and they're recognizing, they're seeing what's going on. Where it goes, I don't know. But in the arena of changing hearts and minds, my question would be, what do they really think? Are they, about other things? And where does this lead? And is this truly the beginning of a monumental shift? You've been saying for the longest time. At some point, that pendulum has to give up. It can't keep swinging in that direction with everybody.
You cannot have long-term success of a political party if all you're attempting to do is divide.
Right. You got to bring them together at election time. And right now, what are you seeing? These radicals, they're not on board for Biden. Biden is endorsing them, trying to get them on board.
But understand that when we talk about, the activism in journalism today, there really is no journalism left. That's why even after, remember when the Mueller report came out and Republicans on Congress were saying, we hope that now the media outlets will take a look at this and see where they're wrong. And we're like, stop it. They're not going to do that. They're just going to move on to the next thing because political activism, I want to make this clear, it's not about what we do here. Right. We give our opinion, but we give our opinion on what the truth is.
Right.
Political activism is when you lie and you give your opinion on the lie.
And the lie has to be carried on every day, the truth will remain regardless of where it is and who's telling it or who isn't telling it. The truth remains. A lie must be formed, must be maintained. You have to hold that torch and carry it and pass it on over and over again. By the way, it must be exhausting. But they're doing it every single day. And that's part of the reason why when we destroy their argument, they just move on to the next one because, well, we extinguished that lie. That torch is out. So now they're on to the next lie. And you just keep doing that. As an activist, you don't care about the truth. The truth gets in your way, as the president of Columbia said. You don't have to get, out there and talk about the facts. It's about the agenda. It's about the narrative. Build the narrative.
Well, the whole thing on the radical transgender movement is the truth doesn't matter.
Right.
All that matters is if you tell the truth, somebody might commit suicide. Therefore, all society, when it comes to sexuality, has to lie to the public because people will commit suicide if you don't tell the lie.
Right. Instead of addressing the issue itself.
Addressing the issue and then addressing the complications that come with the truth.
Right.
And the reality that comes with the truth. And actually having compassion for people who may wish to commit suicide. What you say is, we're going to lie and then we're going to do insane things. You see the NHS came out yesterday. Completely. It's all biological sex now.
It's about the facts now.
Now it's about the facts in Great Britain.
Yep.
And that's going to hit the United States, too.
Yep.
And then everybody will know the delusion and the lies that you've been sold.
Yep.
866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. There it is right there. Alvin Bragg may not prosecute pro-Palestinian rioters who occupied Columbia.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, the district attorney refused to say whether he'll prosecute pro-Palestinian rioters who broke into and took over Hamilton Hall at Columbia University.
Yeah.
We asked that question the other day, did we not?
Yeah, I don't expect him to move on that, He's not going to bring them to justice. He doesn't know what justice means, quite frankly. And so it would be no surprise if he just left it. It's a protest. We'll let the school handle it. We're not going to get involved.
That's not going to go down well in New York City.
No, it isn't.
It doesn't seem to matter. Look, Biden's got no problem because the Republicans are already pounding. What are you talking about? Middle Eastern countries won't take Palestinian refugees because the vast majority of them support Hamas.
Yep.
The United States is going to do it. That's what you bring up in the middle of these riots going on in the campuses? My God.
Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.